Pressley is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses for lending and sharing your expertise today. In this country, our credit reports are our reputations. They determine where you can live, where you can work, and how much it will cost you to finance everything from a car to a college degree. But our credit reporting systems are fundamentally flawed. They're rife with inequities and disparities, which stifle the upward mobility of millions of workers and families. The pandemic and the economic hurt it has wrought has only further shed light on the ways in which our credit reporting systems are a flawed measure of financial health. In fact, despite the devastating financial hardship that families and communities have faced over the past year and a half, national credit score averages have increased to record highs. Ms. Wu, can you speak to this paradox and why it underscores the need for Congress to extend payment pauses and other financial protections established throughout the course of this pandemic?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for the question. It has been an interesting paradox. Despite the economic devastation of COVID-19, credit scores have not plunged, and there's several reasons for that. Number one, of course, is the stimulus and federal unemployment benefits. You give people money, they're able to pay their bills, their credit scores stay high, which shows that really credit scores are about economics and not moral responsibility, as some may put it. Another reason credit scores have held up is the protections in the CARES Act for things like forbearances, student loan pauses, and credit reporting protections when creditors do agree to accommodations. Again, these are very important, but they're about to expire. Like the eviction moratorium, they're about to expire, and millions of consumers will no longer have their protections. And so it's really important for consumers to coming out of forbearances to have the right to have loan modifications so that this doesn't hurt both their credit profile and put them at risk of foreclosure. Student loan protections are about to expire. Millions and millions of consumers are going to have to start paying that again. It's going to be a problem and a struggle, which is why student loan forgiveness is so important.
Thank you, Ms. Wu. So how much financial damage would you say we avoided then because of these protections?
I think we avoided a great deal of financial disaster, especially for low and moderate income. You know, this has been a K-shaped recovery, right? The folks on the here have done okay. It's the folks here that we need to protect. Renters, we need to protect renters because they still owe the back rent. Like the moratorium kept them from being evicted, but they owe the back rent. And eventually those show up in the form of debt collection items.
Thank you. So there's no doubt that these protections, they did help prevent many from being pushed further towards the brink. So we must act to extend these protections to ensure an equitable and just economic recovery. But we also have to work to advance bold, sweeping, and systemic reforms to our credit reporting system. Reforming our credit system is, I think, an issue of both racial and economic justice, which is why I was so proud to reintroduce the Comprehensive Credit Act, a package of reforms that will overhaul the credit reporting system and provide much needed relief to workers and families across our country. Now, this bill would restrict the use of credit scores for most hiring decisions. It would ban the reporting of any debt as a result of medically necessary procedures and establish a credit rehabilitation process for private student loan borrowers facing hardship. Ms. Wu, in light of the ongoing economic challenges facing our families as a result of the pandemic, why are these reforms particularly timely?
Thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you for reintroducing the Comprehensive Credit Act. Absolutely critical and important. And the COVID-19 pandemic shows that because it's average credit scores that have stayed afloat, but there are going to be people in that downward slope of the K that have had their credit profiles hurt. And those folks should not be shut out of jobs because of this credit damage. The time limits for this negative information should be shortened from 7 years to 4 years, which is something else your bill does. And for people who got COVID, who are left with these huge medical bills, the New York Times has documented all these patients with huge medical bills. Those medical bills should not impair their credit reports and hurt them economically for years to come.
Well, it's absolutely clear that our workers and our families can no longer afford inaction when it comes to our broken credit reporting system. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Hollingsworth, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, good afternoon. I appreciate all of our witnesses being here. We've got a lot to get through, so I hope everybody can keep their answers relatively short. Ms. Wu, I've certainly appreciated